Hello, Booktube. I'm Peg, back with another round of parasiting Steve Donoghue's best and worst lists. Worst came out yesterday, worst nonfiction, and it is classic. I'll be talking about it a little bit, but I definitely want you to read yourself what he's written. This is some of his very best writing when he goes through these worst nonfiction. But I have to tell you, you're going to see how dedicated I am to this project when I tell you that just before I turn on the camera, I checked the Open Letters site where you can have links to all his reviews, and the best fiction has just come up. And you know what? I haven't looked at it yet, because I know as soon as I look at it, I'm going to race down to the library, race down to the library and check them all out or put them on hold. And I wanted to get this one made first. So I've shown great restraint. So you can go ahead and look yourself. You'll know what's on the fiction list, best fiction list, and I don't even know yet. Okay, let's get on with today's books quickly so I can look. And first of all, the first one we're going to talk about is on his historical fiction best list. And this is actually his number one choice in historical fiction. Now, Steve, I think, as I do, really enjoys historical fiction. Just the other day, he was talking about it, and he said something about, how do you tell if it's historical fiction? And he said, well, one way you could tell is if there's no airplanes in it, it's historical fiction. So that's great, because sometimes it adds a little myth and maybe a little fantasy, but it's actually based on some true history. And this year he said that the historical fiction which he thinks is going to be really strong, by the way, in 2019. He has a feeling there's going to be a lot of good historical fiction. But even the ones in 2018, he said, were not the usual escapism, but had themes of dislocation and fracture points and many relevances to today, which wouldn't be hard to do. Okay, his number one in this was The Sea Queen by Linnea Hunsaker, and this is a story of Viking era Norway, and in the 9th century. And this is actually the second in I believe it's going to be a trilogy about the same characters and this brother and sister royalty in that country, but because of that, I went ahead, I didn't check out this one. I went ahead and checked out the first in the series, which I believe was on his list last year, The Half-Drowned King, and he refers to it even this year, how it was good, and the next one was a great continuance. So I perused this first one for a while, and it sets up the characters very well. The first one is more, I believe, though the sister is in it, the brother, whose name is Ragvald, is introduced right at the first, and the half-drowned king becomes apparent. He does this, he's coming back on this Viking ship. They've been to Ireland and fought in battles, and he's playing this game where guys on it, there's a line of rowers. They do actually dance on the oars, and the one that can get the farthest without falling off becomes the winner. And there's a terrific action scene. You can just picture it and picture how cold it would be to fall off, which happens. So I'm really looking forward to this. It does introduce the sister, whose name is Svanhild, and she's back home, and evidently the latest one, this year's, deals more with her, the Sea Queen, and her, she becomes a very strong woman, and she doesn't really like the choices that she has in the world that she lives in. So both of them really sound like great books. Okay, next we have one from his young adult list. He makes the point that there are some really good young adult and kids books out, which he points out, amongst the great amount of not so good. So anyway, this one called Dry by Neil Shusterman. He has read, I guess, quite a few of this author's books and really likes him because of his characterization of the characters. And this one, in fact, is from the perspective of a young 16-year-old girl in California, and starts out with her family, and it's a little bit of a dystopian, near future dystopian novel when all the water just stops flowing in. All of a sudden one day they've been having a problem with dryness and have been cutting down on water, but all of a sudden they turn it on, it's not there. And what they do from that point on, it's called a tap out. And she gives a great scene where they, after, they keep thinking they'll come back on, and all the neighbors run out of their house, and they realize it's not going to come on anytime soon, and they rush down to one of the mega stores. I believe it was Costco, but I'm sure Walmart would have the same scene, and get a cart, and they say it's worse than any Black Friday scene. People have rushed down there. All the water in bottles is already gone. They're trying to think of things they could get that would be wet, but while they're thinking of it, all the soda's gone, and they end up finding some ice, big sacks of ice, which they load into their crippled cart, one of those carts that one of the wheels not working and you've got to kind of push it sideways on top of everything else. The scene was so well done. I mean, you could just picture yourself. And I won't go into it. A man tries to steal their ice, and it goes on from there. But I can see his point. The characters are wonderfully done, and you almost feel like you're there. So that was my his young adult list. And I'm going to do one from his best mystery list. And he makes the point that all of his mysteries, all the ones on the mystery list, are parts of series. And that sometimes series, the individual books in series go down, aren't as good, and sometimes they're good, but there seem to be a lot of good ones in these particular series that he chose. And I didn't really know any about all. Oh, I hope the phone's ringing. My husband, I hope will answer it or not. Oh, ignore it. Oh, okay. Anyway, the one, it's actually his number 2 on his list of best mysteries is, come on. Oh, this is acting up. This is not good. This is not good. Come on. Here we go. It's by Jessica Fellows, and it's called Bright Young Dead. Jessica Fellows wrote a lot of the Downton Abbey books, and Julian Fellows, I don't know if it's her father, it must be her father or some relation, actually wrote the screenplay for Downton Abbey. Anyway, but this is Bright Young Dead, is the detectives. It's about the actual Mitford sisters, who were real people in the literary world, and they are you might say, detectives. And Steve mentions how it really works. It's 1920s England. So rather than read this one, I got the first one, which is called The Mitford Murders, so I could get to know the characters. And it's really well done introducing the characters. Nancy Mitford is 16 as it starts. And I think the other character is going to be a maid or another woman that she hires, and they're going to go on mystery hunts. So I read some of it, and it has a great train scene. I love English railroad car scenes or stations, and it has a really good scene right off the bat on that. Okay, so where are we? Okay, we're up to the worst nonfiction. Now, I'm not going to even try to talk about Steve's writing in this. You've got to read it. It should be down below. If you click on the open letter link, it'll be second now. The best fiction is first, which I haven't read yet. Anyway, but it'll be second. You've just got to read it. It's just, Steve, his dry wit, caustic wit. Anyway, so I'm just going to kind of talk about some of the books that are on it, and that's all. You got to read it yourself. Okay, so he goes through a lot. My library actually doesn't have a lot of the ones on the nonfiction list. I guess they consider them a little controversial. There's some on race and religion and atheism, and but the main ones are on Trump. And where is it? Where is it? For his number 2 on the list, he had so many about Trump, he had to put 8 books for his number 2 on the worst of the year. All about Trump, all about today. And he calls it Trump Agitprop, which I had to look up. It means, what does it mean? Propaganda, political propaganda done in art or literature, which of course this is. And if you look closely at all these, there's all kinds of the Russian hoax, Ship of Fools, Trump's America, Stop Mass Hysteria. Oh, they all just look classic, though I'm not sure I'm going to read them, but it's just fun. And I can't even describe his write-up on them, but I will say it starts out with saying there was a tsunami of alt-right fascist sewage. Anyway, okay, on to his number 1. Number 1, where is it? Come on. Number 1, worst is Mr. Trump's Wild Ride by Major Garrett. Again, I'm going to let you read about it. He does say that the Major Garrett, I believe, is the CBS News chief White House correspondent, and he does say he's a good journalist, but well, you have to read what he says about it. I haven't really read it myself, so just letting you know. Okay, I have to close up now and see what's on the best fiction list and rush to the library. I'm nearing my limit of 100 checkouts, but I think I'll take these back, so I'll be close. Okay, that's it for today. See you tomorrow. Bye.